The Forsaken Heir. Episode 82. Soon, the plane took off from Tokyo Airport. An hour later, they landed at Osaka Airport on time. When the plane landed, according to the usual practice, the first-class guests will get off the plane first. Ruelai didn't have any luggage and was sitting in a row outside, so as soon as the plane stopped, she immediately got up and walked directly to the door. As soon as the cabin door opened, she stepped out. In order to avoid long nights and dreams, the plane arranged by the Sua family will take off in half an hour, so she needs to go to the business jet terminal and go through the security check again. To reach the hangar of the private jet. The duty process of private jets is different from that of ordinary civil aviation, and ordinary terminals only serve ordinary civil aviation passengers. As long as the customized passengers take private jets or business jets, they all go through the security check and boarding at the business jet terminal. When Charlie walked out of the hatch carrying the suitcase, Ruelai was no longer in the long reach. He couldn't help but smiled and thought to himself, she wants to go back so anxiously? The more anxious you want to go back, the less I don't want you to go back. Thinking of this, he himself walked slowly to the business jet terminal while taking out his mobile phone and asked Isak, "Old man, how are things arranged as I explained to you?" Isak smiled and said, "Master, don't worry, I have everything ready." Charlie snorted and said, "You pay attention to the situation, I will be here soon." "Okay, master." When Charlie arrived at the business jet terminal and passed the security check smoothly, Isak had been waiting in the terminal for a long time. Seeing Charlie, he immediately stepped forward and whispered to him, "Master, everyone else has already boarded the plane. The woman in black clothes you mentioned on WeChat, I just saw her." After passing the security check, she made a shuttle bus and went to hangar number 12. "The plane parked there is the one you found out." After speaking, he said again, "Oh, yes, our plane is parked in hangar 13 next to them, and the departure time we requested is just behind them, and their plane will be in front of us in a moment." "Okay." Charlie laughed and said, Go to the hangar first, and wait for a good show." Later, Charlie and Isak boarded a VIP shuttle bus and went to hangar 13 together. The shuttle bus drove all the way into the hangar, and the Gulfstream airliner that arrived was already waiting here. When the plane sent Charlie and the others to Japan, they first flew to Tokyo, and then flew directly to Osaka to wait. During this time, they never left Osaka. Seeing Charlie's arrival, Orville, Liang, and others hurriedly got off the plane before Charlie arrived, and respectfully guarded outside the cabin door. After Charlie got out of the car, everyone called him, and then bowed deeply together. Charlie waved at them and said, "Don't engage in these etiquettes, board the plane quickly, I'm still waiting for a good show." After all, he has already taken the lead in boarding the plane. Seeing this, other people hurriedly followed. After everyone boarded the plane, the flight attendant immediately closed the door, and then asked Isak for instructions. "Mr. Isak, can the plane be launched?" Isak glanced at Charlie, and when he saw Charlie nodding, he immediately said to the flight attendant, "Let's launch it now." Subsequently, the aircraft was slowly pushed out of the hangar by ground vehicles. The captain reported the situation to the tower and requested takeoff arrangements by the way. The tower responded to the instructions and informed the captain that there was a private jet going to Zhonghai in front of them and asked the captain to queue behind him to go to the runway. So the captain immediately picked up the communicator and made a cabin announcement, "Mr. Isaac, we have obtained the queuing permission from the tower. The tower puts us in line behind the China shipping plane in hangar number 12. Now compare the planes waiting to take off at Osaka Airport. It takes about 40 minutes to take off." As soon as Charlie heard that the plane he was flying was behind the plane of Sue's family, he immediately said to Isaac, Go to the cockpit." Isaac quickly followed Charlie and squeezed into the somewhat narrow cockpit together. As soon as Isaac came in, he asked the captain, "Where is the plane from China shipping?" The captain pointed to the plane that had just been pushed out from the hangar and was turning in place, and said, "Isaac, that's the one." Isaac nodded and saw that the plane turned toward the runway after turning in place, so he quickly said to the captain, "Quickly follow him." The captain immediately increased the engine thrust, and the plane followed the Sue's plane and taxied forward unhurriedly. Seeing the plane with its wings trembling constantly in front, Charlie's face was full of smiles. At this moment, in the Airbus A320 sent by the Sue family, more than 50 top masters of the Sue family were sitting neatly. A middle-aged man, looking at Ruolai sitting in the front unsmilingly, stepped forward and smiled and said, "Miss Ruolai, this operation was really successful under your command. We destroy the Matsumoto family. None of them survived, and are successfully withdrawing this time. As long as our planes fly, the TMPD will never find us in this lifetime." As soon as the others heard this, they hurriedly agreed, "Yes, Miss Ruolai, you have a good leadership this time. After you go back, Mr. Su will definitely promote you. Don't forget us at that time." Ruolai said indifferently, "I, like you, are both subordinates of the Su family. As long as you do things well, the patriarch will definitely not treat you badly." After that, Ruolai said again, "After going back this time, I will definitely report the truth to the patriarch and ask for your credit. Please rest assured." When everyone heard this, they all smiled and apologized. Although everyone is a master of martial arts, in the final analysis, they have completely entered the dunya, and they have worked for the Sue family for money. When Ruolai said that she wanted to ask for credit for everyone naturally knew, which meant that the Sue family would definitely reward everyone with a generous amount of cash. As a result, everyone clapped happily, cheering and whistling endlessly. At this time, Ruolai's phone vibrated. She picked up her mobile phone, saw that Zin was calling, hurriedly connected the phone, and said respectfully, "Patriarch." Zin's voice came, "Ruolai, how is your side? Is it about to take off? There are no accidents and twists in the middle, right?" Ruolai hurriedly said, "Master, our plane is already in line for takeoff, and it is expected to take off in half an hour at most." "Very good." Zin said with a smile, "This time, you did a very beautiful job. When you return to Eastcliff, you will definitely be rewarded." Ruolai said piously, "Patriarch, it is Ruolai's blessing to share worries for you and the Sue family." Zin laughed and said, "If you leave, I am really lucky to have you as a strong general. Don't you always want to go back to your hometown to take a look? After this time you go back, I will give you a good vacation and go back to your hometown to take a rest. You can rest until the Lantern Festival and then come back." Ruelai said gratefully, "Thank you, Patriarch. I really want to go back and take a look. It would be great if I can rest." Zin said, "You did so beautifully this time, and you will definitely have a good rest when you go back." When Ruelai was about to say thank you, a large number of helicopters roared from all directions outside. Outside the window, you could see many armored personnel carriers roaring, surrounding the planes. In the sky, the helicopters shouted with a high-power speaker, "Listen, the people below, we are the Japanese Self-Defense Force. You are now surrounded." At this moment, more than 50 Sui family masters in the plane looked shocked. The plane is about to take off, and everyone will be able to retreat, leave Japan, and return home to receive awards. Ruelai had even received repeated compliments from Zin on the phone. Who could have predicted that at this moment, things suddenly changed dramatically? More than a dozen helicopters of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces, more than 30 ground-wheeled armored vehicles, and the planes that surrounded Ruelai and others. The Japanese Self-Defense Force is actually the Japanese Army. Only after Japan was defeated that year, according to regulations, the defeated country could not have an army, so it made some changes in the form of the Self-Defense Force. Although it is called the Self-Defense Force, the equipment and training standards of the entire Self-Defense Force are completely in accordance with the regular army. The masters of the Sui family are certainly very strong, but no matter how strong they are just martial arts masters. Their little punches and kicks, in front of the guns of the regular army, are almost like children playing in the house. What's more, the Japanese Self-Defense Forces dispatched this time are all specially trained anti-terrorist special forces, and the number is large, and the total number of air and ground forces is at least 600 or 700. These 600 to 700 people are almost the top presence in the Japanese Self-Defense Forces. In addition, their equipment is very sophisticated, and they have set up a net in advance, so the Sui family masters are simply inevitable. Ruelai, who had not been in the old well, couldn't help panicking now. She blurted out and asked the people around, "What's the matter? How did the Japanese Self-Defense Force find us? Who leaked the wind?" Everyone was full of horror, and they didn't know who had leaked the news. However, they know that everyone is over this time. Originally, the movement they made in Tokyo this time was so surprising that the TMPD and even the entire Japanese government hated them to their bones, so they would trace their whereabouts at all costs. Tokyo and many surrounding cities have implemented exit controls in order to catch them early. Now that they are in the hands of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces, you don't have to think about it, this is a big trouble. At this time, Zin's phone has not hung up. Hearing the movement on the phone, he immediately blurted out and asked, "Ruelai, what's the matter?" Ruelai said with a trembling voice, "Patriarch, our plane is surrounded by the Japanese Self-Defense Force." "What?" Zin felt dizzy when he heard this. He secretly said in his heart, "It's over. This is over." The Sui family has sent nearly 100 people to Japan this time. Except for some support and auxiliary personnel, the real core masters are all on that plane. It can be said that the more than 50 people on that plane represent at least 80% of the combat effectiveness of the Sui family. Especially Ruelai, this is a general who can be equal to 100. If these people fall into the hands of the Japanese government, according to Japanese law, the principal offender should be properly sentenced to death, and the accessory should also be imprisoned for life. Thinking of this, Zin almost ran away, and he tremblingly asked, "Ruolai, what is going on? Did you leak the wind, or did a traitor appear inside?" Ruolai also said nervously, "Going home, don't know this now." At this time, the broadcast outside the plane continued, "This is the Japanese Self-Defense Force. You are restricted to immediately turn off the aircraft engine and open the door for investigation. Otherwise, we will resort to aggressive attack." The captain and deputy captain in the cockpit panicked first. They can all see the gunship above the front, and the large caliber cannon in front of the helicopter has been aimed at them. In front of this kind of military weapon, the civil aviation airliner has absolutely no power to parry. If the engine is not turned off, the cannon on the helicopter can instantly turn the aircraft into a hornet's nest. So they didn't care about asking Ruolai for instructions, and immediately turned off the aircraft engine. At this time, the outside broadcast continued, "This is the Japanese Self-Defense Force. You are restricted to open all hatches immediately. Otherwise, our special forces will attack." The captain ran out of the cockpit at this time and said nervously, "The other party asked us to open the hatch. If we don't open it, we will be under attack." There was also chaos in the cabin. These so-called super masters were completely panicked at this moment. Some people stood up in a panic, like a headless fly, pacing back and forth in the cabin, as if looking for a way to escape. More than 50 people, like more than 50 cockroaches locked in a glass bottle, were so frightened that there was nothing to add. Ruolai also panicked. However, she knew very well in her heart that once the hatch was opened, it was tantamount to surrender. The massacre of the Matsumoto family angered the whole of Japan. If she takes everyone to surrender, the Japanese government will not let them go, and will punish them with the harshest means possible. However, if you don't surrender, the end will probably be even worse. Because special forces all over the world basically adopt the same approach when fighting terrorism. They will use directional bombs to blow open the doors and windows of the cabin, and then throw flash bombs and tear gas into the cabin. Flash bombs will release extremely strong light instantly, blinding people's eyes in a short period of time. Once they lose their vision, they can only be slaughtered. And tear gas is a double blow. It not only makes people cough and loses combat effectiveness, but also makes people's eyes irritated and secretes a lot of tears, further destroying the opponent's vision. The flash bombs and tear gas came in turns so many times. Before the special forces rushed in, the people inside might not be able to hold it, climb out and surrender. In despair, Ruolai asked Zin on the other end of the phone, "Patriarch, what do you think we should do? How to do?" Zin whispered feebly, "All distressed are bleeding. The elite of the Sui family's core fighters are going to be wiped out." The blow and influence this brought to the Sui family was too great. Moreover, in the next few years, it is impossible for the Sui family to reassemble such a team. Even if it can, it will have to pay a huge cost. The cost of attracting a top master is sometimes higher than attracting 100 ordinary people. With so many top players, the cost behind them is also astronomical. What is even more depressing is that if these 50 people fall into the hands of the Japanese government, whether they are sentenced to death or life imprisonment, the Sui family will have to pay their relatives a lot of living allowances all year round. This is also the core method used by the Sui family to win over these masters. The reason why they worked for the Sui family was because the Sui family promised their high salaries, and they also promised that in the event of an accident, the Sui family would pay their family members a monthly subsidy of more than 1 million. It was this kind of money spent at any cost that allowed the Sui family to gather such a large number of top experts. But now, once these 50-odd people are captured by the Japanese government, their families will immediately become the oil bottle of the Sui family. Moreover, the Sui family must not kick these oil bottles away, otherwise, no one will be devoted to the Sui family in the future. So, this time they really have to lose to Grandma's house. At the time when the two sides were deadlocked, the head of Japan's Homeland Security Department had already flown to Osaka Airport by special plane. With him, there was the director of the TMPD. Originally, they were under tremendous pressure and carried out a carpet investigation in Tokyo. They tried their best to catch the group of murderers, so that they could give the people an explanation and the high-level officials. But what they didn't expect was that these murderers were more cunning than the foxes, and left no useful clues at all. When they originally wanted to continue to expand their search range, they suddenly received a message from a mysterious man saying that the murderer had arrived in Osaka and would return to China by plane from Osaka. This shocked the people of the Department of Homeland Security. If this group of people is really allowed to run away, this sensational massacre that caused a sensation across the country may not be broken for a lifetime. At that time, the Japanese TMPD and the Homeland Security Department will be completely thrown into the mud, and even be scolded by thousands of people. Therefore, the Homeland Security Department immediately made a decision to directly take over the case from the TMPD, and then notify the self-defense forces in Osaka to take over and prevent the plane from taking off at all costs. The Japanese self-defense force has tens of thousands of troops stationed in Osaka. Upon receiving instructions from the Homeland Security Bureau, they immediately dispatched the most powerful special forces to Osaka Airport. Moreover, the Homeland Security Department even made an emergency plan to prepare a fighter squadron. If the special forces fail to stop the private jet and allow it to take off, the Japanese Self-Defense Forces F-35 fighter jet will immediately take off, trying to force it to return to Osaka Airport and land before it leaves Japan's airspace. At this time, the special plane of the Department of Homeland Security just stopped. The person in charge immediately picked up the phone and asked, "How is the situation on the scene now? Is the other party's plane under control?" On the phone, the voice of the operational commander came immediately. "Now the opponent's aircraft is surrounded by our square-wheeled armored vehicles, and there is no possibility of breaking through, but the opponent has not yet been captured. We are already preparing for a storm." "Okay." The head of the Department of Homeland Security gritted his teeth and said, "Give them 1 more minute. If they don't surrender obediently, immediately carry out a live ammunition attack. This time we must kill these cruel desperados in one fell swoop and give it to all of Japan. The people will not care." Following his order, 4 boarding vehicles with boarding ladders slowly drove towards Sue's plane from both sides. 4 combat squads with live ammunition have assembled under the plane. Once the boarding car is aimed at the cabin door, they will quickly rush up, blow up the cabin door, and use flash bombs and tear gas to conduct the first round of attack. Their firearms have also been inspected. The all-American assault rifles have very powerful firepower. Once the fire is exchanged, these Sui family's subordinates have no power to parry. At this time, Ruolai, through the window, saw the boarding car approaching. She was already extremely nervous, but she still didn't think about what to do. Someone around her panicked and proposed, "Let's open the hatch and surrender honestly. If they attack by force, the bullet will not be long-sighted." "Surrender!" someone immediately scolded angrily. "I killed 4 of the Matsumoto family alone. Isn't surrendering equal to death? I will definitely be sentenced to death by then. The death penalty does not matter." Another person blurted out, "The execution cycle of the death penalty in Japan is very long. Do you know the Shinrikyo who committed terrorist attacks at Tokyo subway stations before? Their leader Shoko Asawara used sand in 1995. Lindoki attacked the Tokyo subway and shocked the world, but he was not executed until 2018, and it has been delayed for more than 20 years. Even if we are sentenced to death, we can at least live in prison for more than 10 or 20 years. It's better than being shot to death right now, right?" "Yes." Someone stood up, clenched a fist and said, "With our strength, even if we go to prison, we can definitely become a hegemon in the prison. No one will bully us. Then we can live even in prison. Very comfortable, why don't you think about it now?" The conversation between these people immediately convinced most people. If you can live, no one is willing to give up the hope of survival. Even living in prison is much better than dying on the spot. So everyone looked at Ruolai and blurted out, "Miss Ruolai, let's surrender." "Yes. Surrender. Leave the Green Hills, I'm not afraid that there will be no firewood." Zin on the phone also gave a long sigh and said to Ruolai, "Ruolai, surrender, I will do everything possible to mediate with the Japanese side, and I will rescue you anyway." The string in Ruolai's mind was finally loosened. Although she was still unwilling, she nodded and said, "Patriarch, I know, you take care, if you can't serving you is in control." Zin was heartbroken, but he could only speak, "Trust me, I will definitely save you." "Well, I believe it," Ruolai said angrily, then hung up the phone and said to the flight attendant, "Okay, open the hatch." The flight attendant nodded immediately and opened the 4 front and rear hatches one after another. Afterwards, they heard people shouting outside, "Everyone put your hands on top of your heads and line up to walk down the spiral staircase. Anyone who dares to play tricks will be killed on the spot." Ruolai sighed, stood up, and said to everyone with a sad expression, "It is also fate for everyone to work together, I hope you can take care of yourself." After speaking, she raised her hands above her head, and stepped out of the hatch first. Outside the cabin, the helicopter kept roaring overhead, and the huge wind blew Ruolai's long hair and clothes. Countless guns were pointed at her below, and someone shouted, "Come down slowly, put your hands on your head and let us see." Ruolai could only do so. The moment she stepped down the spiral staircase, she was also flustered for her unknown future. Because she didn't know what the end of waiting for herself was. After all, she is the principal culprit. After being arrested, others will definitely confess her identity as the principal culprit. If nothing else, the death penalty must be waiting for her. Unless Xin can really save her, she will undoubtedly die. When she stepped down the spiral staircase, several heavily armed self-defense team members rushed up and pressed her to the ground, then put her hands behind her back, and handcuffed her in handcuffs. Immediately afterwards, the remaining 50 or so people stepped off the plane one after another. All of them were handcuffed back and squatting on the ground, the heads of the assault rifles against the back of the head. Even the crew members were not spared, they were all caught by their accomplices. Charlie stood in the cockpit of the plane behind, sneer in his heart as he watched the Sua family get swept away. These 50-odd people are the claws and fangs of the Sua family. Now that they are all in the hands of the Japanese government, the Sua family's vitality is greatly injured. Sua family, Charlie, will definitely let you pay the price for the anti-Wade alliance back then. After all the members of the Sua family plane were under control, the Japanese self-defense forces began to clear the ground and gradually restore order at the airport. They first drove over 3 buses with steel protective nets welded to their windows, so that everyone including Ruelai, under the watch of the self-defense team, boarded one by one. In order to prevent these people from escaping as much as possible, the Japanese self-defense forces put 2 sets of handcuffs on everyone. Besides, they also handcuffed them. Not only that, but they also scattered these people and guarded them one-on-one. The seat division on the bus has 2 seats on each side. Therefore, every Sua family in handcuffs was arranged to sit by the window, and then a self-defense team with live ammunition sat next to them to prevent them from having any chance to escape. In addition, 10 self-defense personnel armed with live ammunition were arranged in the corridor of the bus to guard all suspects in the vehicle. If there is any change, they will be shot and killed immediately. Ruelai was leaning against the window with her face like ashes, looking out the window through the steel protective net. The airport at this time was brightly lit. For Ruelai, she should have taken off by plane and headed back home, but she never dreamed that she would become a prisoner. She still couldn't figure out which link went wrong. But she knew that she could not escape this time. After a while, all of the Sua family's men were escorted into the bus by the self-defense team. As a result, the 3 buses started slowly under the escort of 10-wheeled armored vehicles, ready to leave the airport. In order to ensure that there are no accidents to the greatest extent, the Japanese Homeland Security Department plans to relocate all the more than 50 people from the Sua family to the Japanese Self-Defense Forces station in Osaka. There are tens of thousands of soldiers guarding them, and no one can rescue them from there. When the bus drove away from the scene, it happened to pass by the plane that Charlie was on behind. The Gulfstream plane Charlie took was a small plane with about 10 seats, and the fuselage was not too high. And Ruelai was sitting on the bus, further shortening the height difference between the two. When passing by this Gulfstream plane, Ruelai looked at the plane's cockpit, just like looking at the cab of an off-road vehicle from an ordinary car. Leaning against the window of the car, she was so desperate, she suddenly caught a glimpse of a man who was somewhat familiar standing in the cockpit of a Gulfstream plane passing by. She glanced at it, angrily almost exploded on the spot. Because she recognized that on that plane, the man who was looking at her playfully was the man who sat next to her when he came to Osaka from Tokyo. Why is he on a private jet? And, it's still behind our plane? Why does the look in his eyes seem to play with me? And, why would he pretend to be a squinting ordinary person on the plane? Countless questions suddenly gathered in Ruelai's brain. She suddenly realized that the person who leaked her whereabouts was most likely the Chinese who flew to Osaka with her. Ruelai couldn't help asking herself, who is he? Charlie was not afraid of being seen through by Ruelai at this time. He kept looking at her in the bus with a mocking look. Seeing the other party getting closer and closer to him, Charlie had a frivolous smile on his mouth, looked at Ruelai, waved at her, and shouted, "Hi, beauty!" Ruelai looked at him with cannibal eyes. Although she couldn't hear what Charlie said, she could still easily recognize the mouth shape of the words "Hi, beauty." From Charlie's playful and ridiculous expressions, Ruelai realized that he was planted in the hands of this man. She observed at Charlie fiercely with resentful eyes, and her teeth were almost crushed by her. At the moment when the car and the plane interacted and the distance between the two was the shortest, Charlie made a decapitating gesture on his neck with his right hand. This gesture made Ruelai immediately furious. Suddenly she jumped up from her seat and shouted hoarsely, "Bad son! I will kill you myself!" Charlie's hearing is much more sensitive than ordinary people, so he heard the woman's angry shout clearly. Immediately, he smiled at Ruelai, and said with a smile, "I'm waiting for you." Ruelai recognized this mouth shape clearly, and was even more sure that Charlie was the culprit who harmed her and more than 50 subordinates. At this moment, she couldn't wait to eat Charlie alive. However, the reality does not give her any chance of revenge at all. The convoy had already begun to accelerate at this time, and soon passed by Charlie, and after leaving the airport, it drove towards the self-defense force station. At the same time, the airport staff had driven the plane towing it away, and at the same time the tower began to direct the airport to resume normal operations. The captain beside Charlie said, "The tower has approved us to go to the runway and take off." "Okay." Charlie smiled slightly, and said with satisfaction, "I have been out for so many days, it's time to go back." The plane quickly taxied to the end of the runway, then continued to accelerate on the runway, and finally took off and left Japan. Although Charlie left Japan, Japan was already boiling. All TV stations across the country are broadcasting major news urgently at this time. During the news, the host excitedly introduced to the audience that the Tokyo Matsumoto family killing case shocked the whole country. 57 suspects have been arrested. The news also specifically broadcast real shots of the capture scene. The shocking scene of multiple armed helicopters, wheeled armored vehicles, and self-defense team members encircling the entire aircraft is indeed jaw-dropping. Soon, the news spread throughout Japan. Zin was in a hot spring hotel in Aomori Prefecture at this time. After reading this news, he angrily smashed everything that could be smashed in the hotel room, including the TV hanging on the wall. This time, the Sui family not only suffered heavy losses, but also disgraced. Really? The old Cheng Feng, who was in Eastcliff, had received the news for the first time. He called and blurted out and asked, "What's the matter? What's the matter? More than 50 people are captured by the Japanese self-defense forces. How did you lead the team? If I didn't completely hand it over to you, you caused me such a disaster. You are trying to piss me off." Zin suppressed the anger in his heart, and said in pain, "Dad. Don't know what is going on, don't know who leaked the wind, but you should know that I don't want to see this scene more than you." As he said, he firmly grasped his hair with one hand, gritted his teeth and said word by word, "Although Ruolai's identity is shameful, she is my flesh and blood after all, and now even she has been arrested. It is very likely that she will be sentenced to death by the Japanese government. Do you understand what I feel? I am a father." Ruolai is only 21 years old this year. Her actual age is 1 year younger than Xiu. However, from her birth until the age of 18, Xin didn't know her existence. Ruolai's biological mother, whose real name is Roma, is the eldest daughter of the He family of China's 4 major martial arts families and one of Xin's personal bodyguards. Roma was not only beautiful, but also very capable. She was almost the leader of the Sui family bodyguards at the time. She was 3 years older than Xin. When Xin was 15 years old, he went abroad to study. For his safety, Cheng Feng asked the He family to come over and became Xin's personal bodyguard. That year, Roma was 18 years old and had just grown up. Since that year, she has been with Xin. Accompany him abroad, accompany him to study, accompany him to hone his family business, and accompany him to travel around the world. Even when Xin frantically pursued his current wife Liana, Roma had been secretly guarding. She joined the world to protect Xin when he was ignorant, and had been guarding him for more than 10 years. She had no understanding of other men at all, so it was natural for her to have a secret love for Xin, who she was most familiar with. Roma has always kept this love in her heart because of the differences in their identities, ages, and family background. Until Xin married Liana, Roma, who was nearly 30 years old, still didn't reveal what she thought of him. In the second year of Xiu's birth, Xin was 30 and Roma was 33. Xin encountered a plot overseas. Roma tried her best to save him at the risk of her life, but she himself lost an arm because of this. Roma, who became a disabled person, had a sharp decline in combat capability, so Xin had to let her retire and return to his home early. When Roma was leaving, Xin was also persevering. After all, for the 30-year-old at the time, Roma had been with him almost every step of half of his life. Therefore, he asked Roma if there was anything he could do for her. Roma hesitated again and again, expressing the feelings she had buried in her heart for many years. Xin, who is usually hard-hearted, was also moved by Roma's confession. That night, he had an excuse to go out and spent the NGHT out with Roma. After that night, Roma left Xin and returned to her hometown in northeast China. After more than 9 months, Ruolai fell to the ground. Ruolai did not have the surname Sui at first, but followed her mother's surname. The so-called Ruolai means Ruoji Ruolai. It also represents Roma's special feeling for Xin in her heart. Ruolai has been held in the palm of the hand by the He family since she was a child. She has never been to school. From the age of 2 to 18, she has been practicing ancient martial arts. Therefore, at the age of 18, she surpassed her mother at the age of 18 and became the strongest young woman in the He family. After becoming an adult at the age of 18, Roma told her life experience. In Roma's description, Xin is a good father who values love and justice. The reason why he never cared about Ruolai is because he never knew her existence. Therefore, Roma gave Ruolai two choices. Stay and continue to practice martial arts in his family, or leave home to work for her biological father. Ruolai considered for a long time and chose the latter. Because she can faintly realize that this is the path her mother hopes to choose. So, Roma changed her name to Ruolai Su, and then she was recommended to Xin. Xin didn't know Ruolai's life experience at the beginning, but felt that this girl was extraordinary in strength, a manufacturable, and very much like Roma back then. Ruolai also obeyed her mother's instructions, and didn't want Xin to know this, but the old and cunning Cheng Feng saw some clues from Ruolai. He always felt that the look in Xin's eyes was something wrong with this young girl. This kind of wrong made him vigilant. He was afraid that Ruolai was an undercover agent sent by his opponent, so he asked people to thoroughly investigate Ruolai's identity. Going up the source step by step, he finally found Roma's body. After learning that Ruolai might be Xin's daughter, the father ordered someone to collect the hair of the two and quietly compare the DNA. After getting the definite result, he told Xin all this. Xin's first reaction was shock, and his second reaction was moved. He is really why Roma is moved by his feelings. After that night that year, she not only gave birth to his daughter, but also cultivated her into a talent, and quietly sent her back to him to protect him. However, he was also worried about Ruolai's identity. After all, Ruolai is the illegitimate daughter of his derailed marriage. If he lets his wife, children, and others know Ruolai's identity, then his image in their minds will be greatly reduced. Moreover, with the wife's character, she will definitely choose to divorce him without hesitation. Even with this mistake, nearly 2 decades have passed. After the old master discussed with him, the two thought of a solution, pretending not to know. Since Ruolai didn't want to disclose her identity and recognize him as the father, he didn't need to take the initiative to recognize this daughter. Everyone keeps secrets in their hearts, and everything in life will not be affected by this. In the past few years, Xin took special care of Ruolai and even trained her as a leader of the Sui family master team. He felt that even if he couldn't show Ruolai a fatherly love, he must arrange her future properly so that she could realize her own life value in Su's house, and let her become a master in the future, and not worry about food and clothing. But he never expected that a trip to Japan would ruin all of Ruolai's future, even her life. So, how can he not suffer at this moment? Cheng Feng could understand his mood at this time. He was silent for a while, and sighed after a long while, saying, "The current situation is very unfavorable for the Sui family. We have lost so many people at once. This matter will spread before dawn. All over the country, now we are like tigers with broken teeth. I am worried that the Wade family will be the first one to be unable to hold back. So you can't get too distracted by this matter, it's best to come back to China right away and discuss it together." Xin choked and said, "Dad, I have a request, and I hope you can agree to it." Cheng Feng hummed, "Say it, I'll listen to it." Xin observed him and said, "At all costs, we must rescue Ruolai." Cheng Feng said with emotion, "Xin, this matter is really too ruthless. It is tantamount to slap the Japanese government in the face of the whole world. They will definitely deal with this kind of thing severely. If she is rescued, the cost may be too high for you to imagine." Xin said seriously, "Ruolai's implementation is what I meant, so I am at fault in this matter. He said, the Japanese government just wanted to catch the murderer and ensure justice, and give the people an account. They arrested more than 50 of our people, and one of the 50-something is released. The core purpose has no effect. Is it always okay to sell face? Selling face? When Cheng Feng heard this, he said with some emotion, in this world, everything can be clearly priced. People say that the crime of killing his father is greater than the sky. Then you give him 100 million, 100 million, or even 10 billion, 100 billion, there is always a price that can move him. After that, he changed his words, but the key is how much money it costs to buy this face? If it really costs 10 billion, or even 100 billion, do you want to buy it too? Xin fell silent all at once. He really wanted to save Ruolai. Ruolai, she is her own flesh and blood. Tiger poison still doesn't eat her, how can he watch her die? Ruolai is the top master of the Sui family, and she is still young. If she can be rescued, then she can make a great contribution to the Sui family in the future. However, no matter whether it is sentiment or reason, the cost must always be weighed before calculating the plan to be implemented. If it is really necessary to pay a price of tens of billions or hundreds of billions, the Sui family may not agree to it. After all, apart from him and the old master, no one in the Sui family knew that Ruolai was his daughter, and they thought it was a subordinate of the Sui family. It's fair to spend tens of millions for a subordinate. A top expert like Ruolai spends a few hundred million, and he just bites his teeth and accepts it. But if you really want to spend more money, this matter will be clearly out of balance in the eyes of outsiders. At that time, even if they barely accept it, they will definitely wonder if there is any hidden truth in it. Seeing that he fell silent, Cheng Feng said with comfort, Xin, if Ruolai is the flesh and blood of the Sui family, your daughter and my granddaughter, I certainly hope that she will be safe, but when doing business, we must weigh the pros and cons in everything. Disadvantages, or advantages equal disadvantages, can be done, but if the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, don't force it. Xin asked in anguish, Dad, tell me, how much cost and price the Sui family is willing to bear for Ruolai? We also paid a great price to rescue Haifei and Xiu this time. Cheng Feng thought for a while, and said, if Ruolai is illegitimate after all, her identity is shameful, so I can't equate her with Xiu. Let's do it, within 1 billion, so that the accounting can be hidden. Hi, it's troublesome for other people or your wife to ask. Xin hesitated for a moment and said, well, I will try it first, and I will fly to Osaka after a while to see if I can find the key person to mediate. Cheng Feng said, don't go. The Japanese government has long known that you are behind the scenes, but they don't want to get into trouble with Su's family for the time being, so they won't go further after arresting those who did it. But if you still don't understand a little bit and leave Japan as soon as possible, in case there are changes in this matter, if someone among our people confessed your name, I'm afraid the Japanese government will change their mind and take you. Xin thought for a while, and felt that Dad's words made sense. In this situation, the Japanese government has more or less sold the Sui family for a little bit of face. As long as the murderer is brought to justice, they cannot hold the Sui family accountable. But if he doesn't keep a low profile at this time, and instead goes to Osaka and try every means to mediate and save people, then he might be a bit shameless in the eyes of the Japanese government. When the time comes, the Japanese government's lack of security will turn its face. Thinking of this, he sighed and said, "I know, Dad. I will fly back from Aomori early tomorrow morning." Yet, Cheng Feng said, "You have to adjust yourself, don't put all your thoughts on Ruolai. Now the Sui family's trouble is even greater. After returning, we will have a meeting to discuss the feasible solutions at this stage. The plan, if we don't quickly fill up the lost power, some families will be ready to move." "Okay, I see." At this moment, East Cliff, Wade family. The major news of the Sui family in Japan has instantly detonated the entire East Cliff public opinion. All the families were shocked by this news, because no one expected that the Sui family, as the top family in China, would suffer such a big loss and encounter such a big failure in Japan. However, this news is a piece of huge bad news for the Sui family, but for other families, it is a piece of good news that cannot be better. The strength of the Sui family in East Cliff is indeed too strong. Except for the Wade families barely able to fight them, the gap between the other families and them can be described as heaven and earth. Now the strength of the Sui family has been severely damaged. For other families, the gap with the Sui family has naturally narrowed, so everyone is naturally happy to watch the Sui family's jokes. Among them, the Wade family was naturally the most excited one, not all of them. Zhongchuan was pacing back and forth in the living room of the villa with excitement, saying, "The masters of the Sui family have always been a problem to my heart, especially that Ruolai, young and strong, scary and capable of doing things. She is very strong, and the execution is outrageous. She has always been a thorn in my eye and a thorn in my flesh. I didn't expect that this time the full fold will be in Japan. It is great." Yet, Andrew on the side was also full of excitement. The Sui family is really losing money this time. The top masters have been swept up by Japan. For a long time in the future, they will all have their tails in their hands. Zhongchuan nodded and asked him, "How is Morgan talking with Takehiko?" Andrew shrugged. Morgan met Takehiko at the hospital, but Takehiko doesn't seem to be interested in continuing this business at this stage, so he doesn't seem to be too caring. Zhongchuan said, "It is understandable. After all, even ordinary people may not accept this kind of thing after losing their legs. What's more, Takehiko, Japan's top rich man, is understandable to face a period of depression." Andrew asked again, "Then should I let Morgan come back, or let him stay in Tokyo to see?" Zhongchuan thought for a while and said, "Let him stay in Tokyo first, and then visit Takehiko in 2 days. Maybe his attitude will loosen. Now there are still a few days before the Chinese New Year. Let Morgan stay in Tokyo until the 12th lunar month. Then come back again." "Okay." Andrew nodded and said, "Cynthia will go to Oris Hill tomorrow morning. It would be great if Charlie is willing to come back for the New Year." Cynthia chuckled and said casually, "It is good if Charlie is willing to come back. If not, we can't force it." Zhongchuan said very seriously, "The Wade family itself is not considered prosperous. If Charlie is willing to come back, it will not only give the Wade family a boost, but also lock us in a marriage partner in advance. I dare not say that he can do it." Zaya from the Sui family, but at least that Sarah from the Gu family is within easy reach. Marriage with the Gu family is not bad. At least the two can be combined to suppress the Sui family. Charlie's plane landed safely at Oris Hill Airport at around 10 o'clock that night. In order to give Claire a surprise, he didn't tell her of his coming back tonight. Isaac had already arranged the convoy to pick up from the plane, so when everyone got off the plane, they shared several cars and went home. Orville and Liang left separately, and Isaac took the initiative to drive Charlie back to Thompson. Charlie naturally did not refuse. After getting in the car, Isaac smiled and said to him as he drove, "Master, this time we made the Sui family so miserable. If the Sui family knows about it, I'm afraid it will be desperate with us." "It doesn't matter," Charlie said with a smile. "The Sui family is now hard to protect itself. It has lost so many people. It will not be able to recover in a few years. It must be overwhelming in recent years." "This is..." Isaac sighed. Ruelai, who was so distracted by the people of Eastcliff, was also brought in by you. The Sui family really suffered a heavy loss this time. "Ruelai?" Charlie frowned and asked, "Who is Ruelai?" Isaac said, "This is the woman you greeted on the plane. She is Sir Ruelai, one of the strongest players in the Sui family." "Oh?" Charlie asked curiously, "Is she the heir of the Sui family?" "No," Isaac said, "she just happened to be Su. She joined the Sui family at the age of 18 and it has only been 3 years now. However, in the past 3 years, there has been a lot of noise, and the strength is really intolerable." Charlie nodded lightly and smiled. "Unfortunately, I don't have a chance to discuss with her." Isaac laughed and said, "Master, she is also a master among ordinary people. How can she be compared with you? If you just say a word of thunder, I think Ruelai will turn to ashes." Charlie said indifferently, "Thunder, this kind of thing can't be used too often. I have the opportunity in the future. I still hope to learn from real martial arts masters." Isaac said, "The national martial arts masters are basically in Eastcliff. Some serve the top families." Charlie smiled slightly, "If I have the opportunity, I can go to Eastcliff again." While talking, Isaac's cell phone rang suddenly. He kept his cell phone on the cell phone holder in the car. He looked down and exclaimed, "Master, it is your aunt who is calling." "My aunt?" Charlie frowned, and the image of a young woman appeared in his mind. He had an impression of his aunt. Aunt Cynthia was 2 years younger than his father. She was not close to his father before, and naturally she was not so close to a family of 3. In his memory, his aunt was a relatively snobby woman, because she felt that the uncle was the eldest son, so the aunt had been close to him since he was a child. Moreover, because the uncle and dad were a little uncomfortable, the aunt stood in the uncle's camp. Before, she always tried every means to help the uncle run against his dad. This was what bored Charlie. Isaac was also a little puzzled at this time, saying, "I have no contact with your aunt. Don't know why she called me suddenly, so I will answer it first." "Good," Charlie exhorted, "don't disclose any information about me." "Okay, master," Isaac said, reaching out and pressing the answer button. As soon as the phone call connected, he respectfully said, "Hello, Miss Wade." Isaac was a subordinate of the Wade family, and the subordinates were called by the main family. Except for the old master, Andrew, Changying, and Cynthia were all major members. As for Charlie's generation, they are generally called Young Master and Young Miss. On the phone, Cynthia spoke with a high-pitched tone, "Isaac, are you in Oris Hill recently?" Isaac hurriedly said respectfully, "Miss Back, I'm in Oris Hill." Cynthia gave a hum, and said, "Tomorrow, vacate the presidential suite of Shangri-La Hotel, and arrange for a convoy to pick me up from the airport. I will fly there in the morning." Cynthia usually travels by private jet, so there is no specific departure time at all. Get up early and go a little earlier, get up late and go a little later. After listening, Isaac asked in surprise, "Miss, you are coming to Oris Hill? Don't know what else needs to be prepared next?" Cynthia asked, "What has Charlie been up to lately?" "Young Master." Isaac glanced at Charlie, who was expressionless in the back seat, through the rear-view mirror of the car, and said, "He is not busy, he should be at home with his wife." "Right," Cynthia said in a somewhat contemptuous tone, "the dignified young master of the Wade family, it's not fine to join a low-class family in a third-rate city. Gave him an emigrant group. If he doesn't manage it well, he only knows how to stay home with his wife and do housework every day. Pathetic." Isaac was embarrassed and didn't know how to answer the conversation for a while. After thinking for a while, he asked, "Miss, are you here this time to see young master?" "Right," Cynthia said, "tomorrow night, let Charlie come to Shangri-La to see me, so I will invite him to dinner." Isaac hurriedly said, "Oh, well, I'll talk to him later." "Yet," Cynthia said, "by the way, I am a person who recognizes a bed when sleeping. What brand of bed does the master bedroom of your presidential suite use?" Isaac thought for a while and said, "It seems to be the Black Label series of Simmons in the United States, all imported with original packaging." Cynthia blurted out, "Replace it. Change to a bed from Swedish Hayes Teng, and ask for their high-end series. Hisen's bedding can be said to be the most expensive bed in the world. Any entry-level mattress costs hundreds of thousands, and a high-end series mattress costs millions. If you add the bed frame, at least 2 million. Even a 5-star hotel would not use such an expensive bed." But now that Cynthia has spoken, Isaac can only agree and say, "Miss, Oris Hill might not have a Hayes Teng store. In this way, I will arrange for someone to buy it at Zhonghai tomorrow morning, and then drive it back to replace it." "Yet," Cynthia's voice sounded satisfactory, and continued, "Yes, there are quilts. I want to cover the quilt made of Icelandic goose down. Arrange it as well for me. Iceland goose down is the world's top and most precious and rarest top down. It uses soft down on the underarms of the Iceland goose duck. It is very precious and is made into a quilt, which costs at least 1 million. In other words, if Cynthia came to stay one night, just preparing the bed and quilt would cost at least 3 million. Isaac did not dare to have any doubts, and immediately said, "Okay, eldest lady, I will do everything tomorrow." Cynthia hummed, "Okay, so be it, I'll hang up." After speaking, she directly hung up the phone. Charlie frowned at this moment and asked, "My aunt, suddenly coming to see me, what kind of medicine is sold in the gourd?" Hearing Charlie's question, Isaac was also puzzled. Master, to be honest, don't know your aunt. In my capacity, it's actually difficult to have direct contact with the Wade family's direct members. Steward Stephen will have more daily contact with them. Why don't you call and ask him? Charlie waved his hand and said indifferently, forget it, it doesn't make sense to call and ask. Soldiers will stop you and the water will cover you. Let's see what she wants to do first. Isaac asked again, then will you go to dinner with her tomorrow? Charlie nodded. Go, if you set a time, tell me directly when the time comes, and you won't use it to pick me up, I will come by myself. Okay. Charlie thought of his aunt's previous appearance. In his mind, she was a relatively mean and evil woman. When he was 5 years old, she married a young master from a First-line family in Eastcliff, and later gave birth to a son. Don't know his name. So Charlie asked Isaac, Old man, what is the status of my aunt at Wade's house now? It stands to reason that she is married, so she should not be able to intervene in family's affairs anymore? Isaac replied truthfully, Master, your aunt has separated from her lover a long time ago, and since the separation, she moved back to the family. Charlie frowned and asked, Separated? What's the matter? Isaac chuckled and said, In fact, we shouldn't say such things, but since you asked, Master, I will tell you. Immediately, Isaac gave a slight pause and explained, when your aunt married to the Sun family, although the Sun family is not as good as the Wade family, it is still a First-line family in the entire Eastcliff family. The overall strength is also very good. However, 6 or 7 years ago, the Sun family bet on the steel industry and invested a lot of money to build a steel group. It coincided with the continuous collapse of the steel industry, so the Sun family also lost a lot of money, and the family industry lost at least half of its assets. Speaking of this, Isaac smiled helplessly. Since the Sun's family was gone, your aunt had always wanted to get a divorce, but Master Wade felt that the divorce was detrimental, so he didn't let her leave. Fortunately, your aunt moved from the Sun's family. Come out, went back to the Wade family, and then start working in the family again. Charlie nodded lightly and hummed, It seems that my aunt is not a fuel-efficient lamp. Isaac smiled and said, Your aunt's temper is really bad, and she is also famous in Eastcliff, so when you meet with her tomorrow, if there is something wrong, don't be too impulsive. Okay, I see. Charlie smiled faintly and said, In fact, I can guess without thinking, she probably wants me to return to Wade's house. Yes. Isaac agreed and said, I think so, but Steward Stephen said that Master Wade really wants you to go back. Considering that you may be more resistant at first, so it didn't make this matter clear. Charlie smiled and said, This time the Sue family's accident, the Wade family should be very happy, right? Isaac also smiled and said, You really did a great favor to the Wade family. The Sue family has not suffered such a big loss in many years. Master should be very happy. Charlie put away his smile, sighed, and his eyes became more determined and said, These two families, whichever one is the only one, is cheaper than the other. One day, if I can step on them together, it will be considered a real success. When Isaac drove to the door of Thompson, it was already 11 o'clock at night. Charlie carried the suitcase, walked into Thompson alone, came to the door of his villa, swiped his card directly into the yard. The room was brightly lit. Charlie opened the door directly with fingerprints before his wife and father-in-law were asleep. At this time, Claire, Jacob, and Elaine's family of 3 are sitting in the living room, watching TV intently. Claire heard the door ring, turned her head and found that it is Charlie. She ran over to him in surprise, and exclaimed in excitement, "Husband, why are you back today? Yesterday you said I might have to wait for 2 more days?" Charlie smiled and said, "Can't I surprise you?" After speaking, Claire ran up to him and plunged into his arms. In the past few days that Charlie went to Japan, Claire missed him every night. Before that, she rarely felt this way. Charlie missed her when he went to Eastcliff, but she didn't think so much. Therefore, when she saw Charlie suddenly come back, she ignored her all-time reservedness and hugged him directly. Charlie didn't expect that his wife would hug him directly in front of the old man and mother-in-law, and for a while, he was a little delighted and embarrassed. So, he said to Claire, "Wife, if you want to hug, you have to wait until we return to the room. After all, your parents are still watching." Claire also recovered and blushed all of a sudden. She was a little shy and fearful and said, "We just watched TV. It turned out that there was a massacre that killed more than 30 people in Japan a few days ago. It is really scary." Charlie asked in surprise, "Has it been reported in China?" "Yet." Claire nodded and said seriously, "Several TV stations are broadcasting, and it seems that they are still sending out troops to arrest suspects at the airport. They at once arrested 3 buses. The law and order seems terrible. Now, I know if it was so messy over there, and I won't let you go if I knew anything." Charlie smiled and said, "Don't know how messy there is, but it should be an accident." Elaine had already run over happily at this time and said excitedly, "Oh my dear son-in-law, you are finally back. You don't know how much your mom missed you when you went to Japan these days." Jacob immediately dismantled the platform from the side and hummed, "You don't miss Charlie, you are thinking about what he brought you." Elaine immediately glared at Jacob and cursed, "Jacob, you don't be. I said it from the bottom of my heart. Even if my good son-in-law doesn't bring me anything, I miss him." Elaine finished cursing in this voice, immediately turned to look at Charlie, and asked with a smile, "Good son-in-law, have you come back this time? Have you brought a gift for Mom?" Charlie nodded, take it all." With that, he took out the gift he bought. He first took out the ring that was bought for Claire, handed it to his wife's hand, and said, "My wife, this is for you. Open it." Claire asked in surprise, "What is it?" Charlie smiled and said, "You'll know by unpacking and taking a look." Elaine also hurriedly urged, "Claire, you quickly open it, and let Mom open her eyes to see what gift the good son-in-law has prepared for you." Seeing that Elaine was already full of eagerness, Charlie put the suitcase on the ground and was about to open it. Elaine, who was on the side, could no longer hold it back, squatted down and said flatteringly, "Oh, my son-in-law, how can this kind of thing be bothering you? Mom will help you get it." Charlie smiled helplessly and did not object. Elaine opened the box and saw a huge boss bag on the top. She couldn't help but said, "Hey, this boss should be men's clothing, right?" Charlie nodded and said, "This is the suit I picked for Dad. He is the standing director of the Painting and Calligraphy Association now. He always has social activities and so on. He is also a leader, and he is a little dignified to go out." Jacob was excited on the side. "Oh, Charlie, you are really a good son-in-law of Dad. Dad has always wanted to buy a suit that can be worn out to drink tea, but I have been reluctant to start, but I did not expect you to do it for Dad. Thank you so much." Elaine curled her lips, took out the suit bag and threw it at Jacob's feet in disdain, and said contemptuously, "You old thing is also worthy of such a good suit? Look at your old face, are you worthy?" Jacob angrily said, "Why am I not worthy? I am in my early 50s and I haven't gotten blessed yet. Unlike you, the whole body is out of shape. What are you talking about?" Elaine suddenly exploded, and blurted out, "You dare to say that I am out of shape? Aren't you tired of life and crooked?" Jacob hurriedly shrank his neck and said angrily, "I was just kidding." Elaine glared at him fiercely, and then said to Charlie, "Good son-in-law, what boss suit do you buy for him? Just his old thing, wearing a fake is worthy of him. I saw you last time. The fake Rolex you found for him is not bad, and it's good enough to match his bad old master." Charlie smiled and said, "Mom, Dad's suit doesn't have much money. It's a discount. The gift I bought for you is much more expensive than this." When Elaine heard this, she immediately smiled and said happily, "Really? Ouch! My good son-in-law loves me. What gift did you buy for Mom? Show it to Mom." Charlie took out the 2 Tiffany boxes, and handed the larger one to Elaine. "Mom, this is for you." Elaine looked at the Tiffany logo on the package and immediately danced with excitement. "Oh! Tiffany! This is a big international brand." Having said that, she immediately opened the package and couldn't wait. After that, she opened the exquisite Tiffany jewelry box again, and when she glanced at it, she found a golden bracelet full of diamonds lying inside, and she was suddenly surprised. "I know this bracelet. It sells for hundreds of thousands in China. It's certainly not cheap to buy in Japan." Charlie smiled and said, "Mom likes it, it doesn't matter if it costs more money or less." Elaine smiled, "Why don't I say that my son-in-law is the best?" After finishing speaking, hurried up and put the bracelet on her hand, and watched carefully from all angles under the light. While observing, she exclaimed, "This Tiffany thing is done well. The workmanship is fine, and there is no fault at all. It's so good with my temperament in my hands." Although Jacob secretly curled his lips on the side, he did not dare to say anything ironically. At this time, Charlie took out another smaller gift box from the suitcase and handed it to his wife. "My wife, this is for you, open it and see if you like it." Claire was surprised and said, "Bought it for me too? Husband, it is not easy for you to make money. I usually don't see you spend money for yourself, and you always buy things for me when you go out." Elaine hurriedly said, "Silly girl, Charlie is an absolute model of a good man who loves you, admires you, and spoils you. Look at your dad, this old stingy man. When did he give me any valuable things?" Jacob said angrily, "You used to control the financial power of the family. I don't even have pocket money. What can I give you something?" Elaine sipped, I'm poo. Even if the husband has no money, he will do everything possible to give things to his wife. How about you? You will make excuses for having no money. Haven't you hidden private money yourself for so many years? Jacob picked up the suit Charlie gave him and hummed, I won't tell you about these useless ones. I will go back to my room and try the suit my good son-in-law bought me. It happens that the Calligraphy and Painting Association will have activities tomorrow. I will wear this new suit then. Claire had already carefully unpacked the gift box. When she saw a brilliant diamond ring in the jewelry box, she was shocked and covered her mouth. Elaine's eyes widened several times and exclaimed, Mom! Such a big diamond! Should it be a 3-carat? Charlie smiled and said, Then you really know the goods, the main diamond on this ring is 3.2 carats. Oh! Elaine felt her scalp numb, and exclaimed, So big! This is not a millions. Charlie smiled and said, Renminbi is only 800,000. It's only 800,000. Elaine touched her chest, and said with emotion, My dear. My son-in-law is really good at it. 800,000 diamond ring, only 800,000, really? Great wealth. Great. Great. Claire beside her couldn't help being shocked, and said, Charlie, you are busy running around every day, and it is not easy to make money. Why buy me such expensive things? The ring is so expensive, I can't wear it out, isn't it a waste of money? Charlie said seriously, My wife, we have been married for so long and haven't bought you a ring. Just treat this ring as my belated wedding ring for you. Claire's eyes were moved with tears. She looked at Charlie and choked, If you really want to buy a wedding ring, then you can buy one for 20,000 or 30,000. Don't buy such an expensive one. As she said, she wiped her tears and continued, And look at you, every time you just buy things for me and parents, but never buy things for yourself. How can I live in my heart? Go willingly. Charlie smiled slightly, took out the ring, and took his wife's right hand, and said seriously, Claire, it is my blessing to marry you. Thank you for your persistence for so many years. This ring is what I, as your husband, owe you, now I will make up for it, you must accept it. Yet. Elaine also helped to echo, Daughter, look at how good Charlie is and takes care of you so much. You must have a good time with Charlie. The most important thing is to have a baby quickly. Claire was still moved by Charlie's affectionate confession, but when she heard this, she blushed immediately. At this time, Charlie carefully put the ring on her right ring finger and said with a smile, Wife, company is the most affectionate confession, thank you for being with me all these years. At this time, Claire was already moved to tears. Looking back on the years of marrying Charlie, she was also filled with emotion deep in her heart. Back then, Grandpa insisted on letting her marry Charlie, she didn't understand, and the whole family strongly opposed it, but Grandpa still used his cardin to make her compromise. However, forced marriage made her misunderstand marriage from the beginning. After marrying Charlie, the marriage she thought was to follow her grandfather's request and be Charlie's wife. The two would live together like that. It didn't matter whether it was suitable or not, it didn't matter whether she liked it or not. Therefore, the two have respected each other for a long period of time. Although they are nominally husband and wife, they are actually just strangers living under the same roof. Especially when he first got married, Claire also suffered strong pressure from all sides because of Charlie's identity. At that time, everyone was in her ears and kept telling her, "Charlie is a rubbish. She shouldn't be with Charlie, and divorce Charlie quickly." But for her at that time, since she chose to marry him, no matter whether she was willing or not, she didn't want to embark on the road to divorce. After all, Charlie has never done anything to miss. Later, in her post-marriage life with Charlie, she gradually saw the shining points on Charlie's body, and gradually developed a little affection. However, she has never understood what it is like to like and love. After all, Claire had never been in a relationship before, and she was relatively ignorant and stupid about feelings, so that the two of them had been so confused to this day. And now, facing Charlie's affectionate confession, she suddenly felt a feeling of extreme acceleration in her heartbeat, which made her short of breath and dizzy. Of course, she was moved to tears. Elaine on the side saw this scene with joy in her heart. She really felt that Charlie was indeed a good son-in-law who could stand the test. In the past, those rich second generations who liked Claire, although they were extremely flattering to her, there were few who could really do Charlie's steps. Looking back in the past, she treated Charlie so much and insulted him so much. He still took his respect for his mother-in-law and always called her a mother. From this point of view, Charlie is a good young man who repays his grievances with virtue. What's more, she has repeatedly caused serious disasters, and in the end it was Charlie who helped her settle, and even saved her life more than once. These are classic models for repaying morality. The most important thing is that Charlie is finally promising now. A Thompson villa worth more than 100 million and 2 BMW cars were all earned by Charlie. Every time he went out to show others feng shui, he would buy her many expensive gifts. Such a son-in-law, to be honest, is really hard to find with a lantern. Moreover, he is really good and caring for her daughter, which is even more rare. So she hurriedly said to Claire, "Claire, Charlie must be tired after flying back so late. You two should go back to the room and take a sh0wer together and go to bed early." Ah! Claire was startled, her face flushed immediately, and said at a loss, "Mom, what are you talking about? What together, a bath?" Elaine said solemnly, "Isn't it normal for a couple to take a bath together? It just so happens that the bathroom in our big villa also has a luxurious bathtub. That bathtub is suitable for 2 people. You can also wipe Charlie's back or something." How great! Claire was so embarrassed that she couldn't wait to get in. Although she is now more than 20 years old, in fact, she is still a little girl who has never been in a relationship before. Elaine suddenly asked her to take a bath with Charlie and asked her to wipe Charlie's back. She couldn't adapt at all, she was ashamed and embarrassed. Charlie knew that his wife was a shy woman, and she had no experience in that aspect. How could she be able to hold Elaine's ridicule? So he hurriedly said, "Mom, at first she feels thin-skinned, so don't shame her." Elaine smiled and said, "Claire, have you seen it? Charlie thinks more of you." As she said, she stretched her waist and said, "I won't talk to you anymore. I have to go back to my room and take pictures of my bracelet. You guys should rest early." While talking, Jacob walked out of the elevator wearing a brand new boss suit. As soon as he saw the three of them, he walked around the elevator entrance with a smug look, and smiled. "Look, the old Wilson still has some foundation, this suit is almost tailor-made, you just say I have this figure. It's rare in the world to be blessed in the 50s. At this time, Jacob, wearing a high-end and decent suit, did look very stylish. In addition, he did a good job in body management. At first glance, he really did not look like a person in his 50s. But Charlie knew very well in his heart that Jacob was actually a lazy man, and he didn't exercise much at all. The reason why he could keep his figure so good was completely tortured by Elaine for so many years. Although Elaine has converged a lot now, the former Elaine is simply a female devil. Whoever puts on a wife like this will be awful and dying. She is bored and bored every day. She doesn't even have any appetite for eating, and she doesn't want to gain weight. It's too impossible. So Charlie praised, "Dad, you are dressed like this, and you look like you are 40 years old. You really have a very good temperament." "Yeah. He. Jacob smiled triumphantly, and said, "When I was in college back then. It was also a famous school grass, not much worse than those little fresh meats now." Claire shook her head helplessly. "Dad, when can you be a little humble? If you say this, it will make people laugh." Jacob curled his lips and said, "What are you afraid of?" "Your father, I put it in the pile of old men. That is definitely one of the best. To use an idiom to describe it, it's called a triumphant crowd." Elaine looked at Jacob, who was young and styled, and felt really uncomfortable. She couldn't help thinking in her heart, "Jacob's dog stuff, it's really like that to clean his my figure, he has been getting blessed all these years, and he is getting a little out of control. During this period of time at home, my legs have been injured. And even a serious lack of exercise, which leads to continuous weight gain. No. I must lose weight and get back to my body. Nothing can make me comparable to Jacob." So Elaine gave Jacob an unconvinced glance, did not speak to him, but said to Charlie and Claire, "I'm going back to the room, and you two will go back to rest soon." Claire blushed and responded, "Okay Mom, you go back to the room and rest." Jacob also said, "Charlie, you go back to your room early to rest. You must be tired after running around for so many days. Let Claire put some hot water for you and take a good bath." Claire couldn't help but feel ashamed when she thought of what her mother said just now, but when she thought about it, her husband was really working hard. Taking a bath can relax a lot, and the feeling of exhaustion will definitely be greatly improved. So she said to Charlie, "Charlie, you can chat with Dad for a while, I'll go up and ready some water, and you can take a bath in 10 minutes. Charlie nodded. After Claire and Elaine took the elevator upstairs together, Jacob pulled Charlie to make him a cup of tea to relieve his fatigue. As soon as Charlie sat down, the phone buzzed. Looking down, it was an unfamiliar number from Eastcliff, so he stood up and said to Jacob, "Dad, I'll answer the phone." Jacob said, "Answer the phone right here, go out." Charlie nodded, "The customer is calling." After speaking, he stepped out of the door. When he came to the yard, Charlie pressed the answer button and said, "Hello, who is it?" On the phone, a woman's enthusiastic voice came, "Oh, Charlie, I am your aunt. For so many years, your aunt really missed you so much." If it weren't for the phone call between his aunt and Isaac on the way home, Charlie at this moment would really believe that the enthusiasm of the woman on the phone really came from the heart. So, he simply pretended to be very surprised, and said with a smile, "Auntie, it's really you? Why would you remember to call me?" Cynthia actually didn't want to call Charlie either. She had already passed the order to Isaac, so that Isaac would directly inform Charlie to go to Shangri-La for dinner tomorrow. However, Mr. Wade came to her specifically just now and asked her to call Charlie herself. But it can also appear that she is more sincere, and, after all, she and Charlie have not seen each other for so many years. A call ahead of time to get in touch with each other is tantamount to warming up in advance. For the next plan to persuade Charlie to go home, also will help. So she smiled and said, "Charlie, I haven't seen you for so many years, your aunt has always been thinking about you. I wanted to see you in Orris Hill a long time ago, but I heard Stephen say that you don't want to come back temporarily, so I didn't bother you." With that said, she asked with great concern, "Charlie, how have you been all these years?" Charlie felt a little nauseous in his heart, but he kept politely saying, "Everything is fine for me, thank you aunt for your concern." Cynthia breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "You have a good time, auntie can't be more pleased." After that, she said again, "By the way, Charlie, I called you, mainly because I want to come to Orris Hill to see you tomorrow and ask you out for a meal. I wonder if you have time?" Charlie asked in surprise, "You are coming to Orris Hill tomorrow?" "Yes." Cynthia said, "Actually, I wanted Isaac to notify you, but I thought about it, the aunt and nephew have not seen each other for so many years, so I called you personally." Charlie smiled and said, "Okay, when will you arrive tomorrow? I will invite you to dinner." Cynthia smiled and said, "Let's have dinner in Shangri-La tomorrow night. I have already told Isaac." "Okay." Charlie did not hesitate, and agreed without thinking, "Then see you in Shangri-La tomorrow night." Cynthia smiled and said, well, then I'll see you tomorrow." Charlie hung up Cynthia's phone, the smile on his expression gradually disappeared. He has no affection for all the people named Wade, whether it is his grandfather, his uncles, or his aunt. Before investigating the cause of his parents' death, the Wade family was the biggest suspect in his eyes. Back in the room, Claire had already set a bath water for him. After taking a bath, Charlie went back to bed to sleep. Claire, like a child waiting to hear the story, asked him if he had encountered any interesting things in Japan. Charlie told Claire what had happened between the three big families in Tokyo. However, he deliberately picked himself out of this series of events, not daring to let Claire know that he was deeply involved in it. He just told her that his clients in Japan happened to have some relationship with these families, so he got some first-hand inside information. Claire was shocked to hear Charlie talk about these incredible things. The elements of big family, ninja, and assassination sound not only incredible, but also new. Therefore, Claire was very happy to listen to it, and entangled Charlie to talk about it until it was too late. The next day, Claire got up early to go to work at the company. Charlie had eaten breakfast made by Elaine, and spent the whole day thinking about Cynthia's affairs. Since Stephen found him, until now, the Wade family has never directly appeared in his life. Charlie also liked this situation where he didn't have to deal with the Wade family. However, Cynthia broke the silence between him and the Wade family this time, which also means that the Wade family has begun to want to win over him, and for whatever purpose they do not want for him to stay in Oris Hill. Even if he saw his aunt today and refused her request, the Wade family would definitely give up. It seems that the Wade family will become a long-term trouble for him in the future. At 5:30 in the afternoon, Charlie said hello to his mother-in-law Elaine, telling her that he would have something tonight and not eat at home. Later, he went out alone and took a taxi to Shangri-La. Isaac wanted to pick him up by car, but Charlie refused. The Wade family always thought that Isaac was theirs. If Isaac behaved too diligently to him, the Wade family might be aware of the abnormality. When Charlie arrived at the Shangri-La catering department, Isaac was already waiting here in person. Seeing Charlie arrived, Isaac immediately stepped forward and said respectfully, "Master, you are here." Charlie nodded and asked him, "Where is my aunt? Is she here?" "Here." Isaac wiped the sweat from his forehead and whispered, "Your aunt said that she was a little tired. I arranged for a spa masseur to go to her room to serve her. It will take more than half an hour to finish the work." Charlie smiled faintly, "All right, then take me to the box first." Isaac hurriedly said, "You two will have dinner in the Sky Garden tonight." Charlie couldn't help but frown. He remembered the hanging garden, where the wedding he had made up for Claire was held there. The hanging garden is a huge banquet hall with no boxes and translucent glass around it. It is usually a dining place for top Shangri-La members. Choosing to eat there will inevitably be seen by other guests. So Charlie asked him, "Are there many guests tonight? In case many people see me having dinner with her, and then recognize her, it might expose my identity." Isaac shrugged and said, "Don't worry, Shangri-La tonight has completely cleared the entire catering department. Whether it is the outside box or the Sky Garden, there are no other guests tonight." Charlie asked in surprise, "It's not enough to clear a Sky Garden? The boxes, Chinese restaurant and Western restaurant outside are also cleared?" "Yes." Isaac said, "The catering department will only entertain you and your aunt tonight." Charlie said awkwardly, "There is no need to toss like this, just find a higher grade box." Isaac lowered his voice and said in Charlie's ear, "Master, you may not know your aunt, she has always been like this." After speaking, Isaac said again, "Your aunt usually has eyes above the top, and she has always sneered at a third-tier city like Oris Hill, and asked her to eat with locals in a third-tier city like this. In her eyes, it's an insult to her." "What insult?" Charlie said with a bit of disgust, "No matter how pompous you are, don't you still have to eat, drink and sleep like ordinary people? What's the point of doing this kind of specialization everywhere?" Charlie stepped into the restaurant department of Shangri-La. The huge food and beverage department is indeed empty today. The waiters also evacuated a lot of arrangements. According to Isaac, he was afraid that there would be too many waiters, which made Cynthia upset. Charlie walked through the outer restaurant of the catering department and came directly to the hanging garden in the center. In the hanging garden banquet hall at this time, the 88 banquet tables have been completely removed, and only one is left in the center. A well-made Western-style dining table. Charlie didn't need to think about it. The removal of the 88 banquet tables and chairs must have been instructed by his aunt. Therefore, he felt a little upset in his heart. Although Charlie hadn't met this aunt until now, he felt very disgusted by his aunt's style of being a relative of the ancient emperor. Even if Charlie now has nearly 60 billion in cash in his bank card, he still has no intention of showing off. Not to mention that eating a meal is a waste of time and money. Even if he is allowed to eat a bowl of beef noodles for 10 at a roadside ramen restaurant, he will not feel anything wrong. Moreover, in order to have a meal, the entire Shangri-La field and the entire hanging garden were emptied, and it was really impossible for Charlie to experience any superiority. On the contrary, this will make him very repulsive and resistant. Accompanied by Isaac, Charlie came to the only table. The dining table is about 2 meters long and 1 meter wide, with 2 seats placed at both ends. Isaac personally opened one of the seats for Charlie and said, "Master, I have to apologize for keeping you waiting here for a while." Charlie nodded lightly and said, "Okay, go ahead and wait for her here. I will just play on my mobile phone." Isaac asked hurriedly, "Master, would you like to drink something first? I'll let someone help you prepare it." Charlie said, "Just give me a glass of boiled water." "Okay, young master." Charlie sat at the dining table alone, fiddling with his cell phone, just in time to receive a message from Nanako. "What is Master Wade doing?" Charlie smiled knowingly when he saw her message, and replied, "Preparing to eat outside, how about you?" Nanako replied, "I just came back from the hospital and accompanied my father in the hospital." Later, Nanako sent another message, "Master, does your wife like the ring you gave? Is the size of the ring still appropriate?" Charlie replied, "She liked it, thank you for helping me try the ring, the size of the ring is also very suitable." Nanako sent a smiling face and said, "That would be great. It will be the Chinese Lunar New Year in 4 days. I wish Master Wade a Happy New Year in advance." With a smile on his face, Charlie typed his fingertips and replied, "Thank you. How is Mr. Ito doing?" Nanako replied, "The doctor said that after a few days of training, he can be discharged from the hospital." "That's good." Charlie just sent these 3 words, and at the entrance of the hanging garden, a woman dressed in luxurious and splendid walked in. This woman, looking at her age, is about 40 years old, wearing a limited edition Chanel costume with short and medium hair dyed in yellow. Her face was not beautiful, except for her indifferent appearance. Kind of a very mean feeling. This woman is Charlie's aunt, Cynthia. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.